Tech Snippets Today with Joseph Raczynski.
All right, we have Griffin Dunaif here today, CEO of Halladay. Great to have you.
Thank you. Yes, it's a pleasure to be here.
I'm definitely thrilled to have you and start talking about agentic AI and smart contracts and all this fun stuff. So let me sort of tee this up and then we can jump into it. But the way that I'm thinking about it right now is that imagine if we were building a blockchain application, if it was as easy as ordering a favorite coffee. No complicated instructions, no waiting in line, just pick your favorite Joe and go. That's the new reality. Groundbreaking systems are now automating everything from recurring payments to treasury management to B2B transactions, eliminating the need for risky, time-consuming smart contracts. Fintechs, banks, financial institutions can now serve up digital assets and new products in hours instead of months. So leading this innovation is Halliday Workflow Protocol, which is brewing up a whole new era of safe, speedy blockchain development. And I'm on my third cup of coffee today, so I'm sorry for this all coming out like this, but let's get started on this. So, Griffin, I'd love to hear from you how this all started, what your background story is, and then we can proceed from there.
Absolutely. Yeah, so prior to starting the company, I actually did research in computer science at Stanford. So I worked on embedded operating systems, actually. So that's the hardware software interface, the code that makes the machines work and lets you write other code to them. And then as well, I worked on cryptography. So I did some work with a professor at Stanford named Dan Bonnet on applied zero knowledge protocols. And we worked on enabling organizations to actually spend their treasuries without revealing what they were spending it on. So privacy on the blockchain. And sort of through this academic lens, I fell in love with the technology, and serendipity took me to founding a company. And so I actually left the program early to start Halliday. I was working on protocols and just found a passion for applying it with customers. And then the problem we saw over and over and over again was just how difficult it is to actually make a blockchain application reality. And the thing we always go back to is writing smart contracts. And my professor would always say this: it's like launching a rocket. Once it's out, it's gone. It's like a piece of hardware. But we're used to the software development paradigm, right? It's 2 week Scrum, continuous integration. You're constantly updating your software. You can't do that with smart contracts. And so we're trying to usher in this software era to make it so you actually can develop features in hours as opposed to years, which is more of a hardware development cycle.
No, it's amazing to hear all of that, and you've brought up a few different things that I think are great to sort of highlight. One is that you're working on ZKPs. That was a big deal. So zero knowledge proofs, helping people to sort of offer up information about themselves without revealing that particular piece of information, be it a name, a social security number, whatever it is. You're just proving that. Um, and then the other piece that I thought was kind of interesting is the immutability part of the blockchain, right? Like, so you're deploying a contract, you're putting it onto the blockchain, you're saying, hey, this is this. And once it's up there, it's done. And it's difficult you can't really make a change. So I want to talk about that in a second with you and get your understanding of what we can do about that maybe in the future. But I know that CryptoPunks of all groups, so in 2017, they launched their original NFT. It's 10,000 different, now it's art, considered art, all this lovely stuff. But their first contract they released had a mistake in it. And so they had to scrub that whole piece and then release another set of 10,000. So they had two separate contracts that basically had the same exact thing, but one tweak to it so that people weren't able to, on the original one, produce as many as they wanted to. On the other one, it kept it to 10,000. So it's kind of crazy to think about. All right. Let's dive into the company itself. Can you give people a better understanding of what you all are working on, what you're doing?
Absolutely. So we built a protocol that lets you build business logic on blockchains in hours instead of years. And the primary way we let you do that is we give you these higher level Lego pieces that are existing protocols, blockchains, and services. And we let you stitch them together into workflows. What does that mean tangibly? It means, well, you can build a payments product by combining existing services. You can build a recurring payments product, a treasury management product, anything you'd ever want to see on the blockchain. just composing different Legos together, as opposed to getting into the nitty-gritty low-level code. I almost say it's like building a website. You're not building a website in C, you're writing a much higher level description of it. And that's what we've enabled. And so we let you build applications very easily.
Amazing. Okay, that's definitely helpful to understand that as background. How does this play in with agents now? So the agentic AI, and you're able to sort of build out separate agents to do tons of different things. How does that work, or how do you see that potentially working in this space?
Yeah, that's a very good question. The primary challenge with an AI system on a blockchain is twofold. It's how do you trust it not to lose all your money? It's a fuzzy system, right? AIs are maybe what, 98% correct,
Yeah.
in the optimistic case, 99% correct. Cryptographers get nervous when you go from 1 over 2 to the 56, down to 1 over 2 to the 234, right? We're talking about astronomically tiny, tiny, tiny numbers. And so the accuracy of an AI system is not acceptable for money movement. And the second thing is also just compliance. You can't send your funds or your value to an AI server without that server itself either being regulated or non-custodial. And building this stuff in a non-custodial way is very challenging. And so basically, you need this intermediary solution that, one, brokers trust between a user and AI, and then also lets the AI do enough with the funds so that it's useful. And finding that middle ground is very challenging. But it just so happens that what we've built, which were these higher level Lego pieces where you can take applications and compose them together, is exactly what you need. Because what it is we've built lets you set guardrails. It says, hey, these are the boundaries of what the AI can do. And then it lets the AI play within those boundaries to do things for you, to do work on your behalf, like talk to an on-chain application. And with those two things together, you get security, you get self-custody, and you get automation.
Really interesting. So the guardrails that you put on it, are you creating an LLM or even an SLM that allows for people to sort of just work within that space, and is it sort of walled off in and of itself, or the rules basically saying, hey, you have to only go by X, Y, and Z, and you can't go beyond that? Like, how does that part work?
Exactly. It's more of this. It's more of the latter, where you set a higher level set of rules, and so, I almost call it like the rule of law for AI, right? Where you have the contract law, you have these things set on chain. It's separate from the AI system, right? AI systems are structurally very, very, very different than a smart contract. But
Yeah.
what a smart contract can do that's unique is they can say, hey, here is the boundary of what we think is acceptable that the AI can do, and it sets it ironclad in code on a blockchain immutably. And then the AI, if it tries to go beyond it, the blockchain just says, no, you can't do that with the user's funds. And so it's this dance between the on-chain contract and the AI's decision-making authority. And you're
Okay.
basically sub-delegating a section of, your authority to this machine, but it's cryptographically protected by the blockchain. So that's sort of like the legal contract analogy.
Okay, no, and that's amazing to hear. So it's like the logic component of the actual smart contract, like the if-then statement. And I used to always give this example, and I'm not going to go through it because so many people have already heard it already, but a trust. So a legal trust that basically said one person dies, then who gets the trust based on some parameter. If this happened or if this happened, then the next thing is okay, well, then I need to act on that. So that part is a smart contract. And then the AI would be looking possibly at those parameters. I mean, tell me if I'm wrong. So I want to make sure I'm right or wrong. And if those parameters are, you have to make a choice between A or B, then the AI goes out and does that. And then is it coming back and recodifying it?
Yeah, so it'll come back and then it'll talk back. So it depends on the design of the system. In our system, given those parameters, the AI would then respond with a sort of a description or a workflow or an action to take within those parameters.
Perfect.
And if the action is not within the parameters, it's automatically rejected. It's like trying to do something with the trust that you're not allowed to do with the trust. It would be nullified. And
Excellent.
so it provides structure and flexibility to an agent. It's almost like a principal agent construction under certain rules and delegation rights.
Okay. No, thank you for going through that. I definitely appreciate it. It's very, very helpful. So there's a few things that I'm trying to decipher at this point in time for my own head, and I think there's a lot of people that might be going through this right now. And I think you all touch on this a little bit, is there's an amazing growth of stable coins right now. I mean, you're seeing that with the Circle IPO on the New York Stock Exchange, and you're seeing all these other groups that are coming out with their own stable coins. And I've posed this to a lot of people in both the AI space and in the blockchain space at different conferences recently. And I'm talking about it among my peers, and that is, do you currently see groups building out, and you may be doing this, I don't know, um, wallets that AI agents own themselves? Are you starting to play around with that? Or you think we're too far away from that? But basically, an agent has access to its own wallet, and it may have, pretend it has $1,000 USDC in it or whatever, and it has to do certain tasks, but it's using that wallet almost autonomously based on instructions from other specific agents to coordinate with it. Are you seeing that? Are you guys building out on that, or is that too far out?
So, that is actually starting to happen. I think it is a potentially disruptive technology and trajectory for AI and how it coordinates. It hasn't reached a sophisticated level of adoption yet, to be totally honest.
Okay.
I think there are a few more layers that need to be built to make something like this work. But in terms of its vision, it's not just autonomous applications. It's like fully autonomous, interconnected applications that can pay each other and allocate resources. That would be a pretty significant change to the structure of the internet. It's not only can you pay on the internet, it's you can autonomously pay and allocate capital. And the outcome of that is sort of hard to predict, but it's certainly a exploration area. So I'd put it as one of those things where it's like it'll either be very, very much like change the trajectory and the structure of the market, or it will not go anywhere. And so it's like it's one of the two. It's like it's not going to be in the middle. But it's certainly worthy of experimentation. And we're interested in helping people build those applications, because even if you have a private key, you need to act with it. It's like when people talk about tool use with an agent, right? Where the agent can go talk to your Gmail, it can go talk to your Google Drive. Well, the current way to do that is with MCP and Anthropic's protocol that lets you talk to all of these services. There's no such protocol that brokers sort of data transfer, but trust on a blockchain. And that's the important component. You need to broker the trust on a blockchain, because not just data, it's also the immutability and people's money. And that's a different structure than what MCP is designed for. And that's a lot of what our workflow protocol does. It integrates and creates a unified data format, but it also brokers the trust between multiple parties to then act in sequence.
Okay. No, I appreciate that. So what would be a good example of what someone might be working on right now? You don't have to identify the customer if you don't want to, but what would be a typical workflow that people might be building right now using what you guys have created?
Yeah, so for the last year, the most popular workflow it's even more foundational than what we're talking about with AI agents. It's actually, I call it the fiat sandwich. It's the full cycle of money, where when you set up a new blockchain application or a new blockchain, a lot of people are launching their own chains today, right? It's becoming the new server.
Totally.
We have this problem. Your users, one, they need to transfer their money in, so they need to buy. They need to be able to transfer their money across from other networks into your network, and then they need to be able to transfer it out. And it happens if you don't have all three parts of that. It's like an electric circuit. If you don't have all of it, none of it flows. And it just turns out that integrating and composing all of those different methods, right? There are many centralized exchanges, many banks, many credit cards, many different blockchains, many virtual machines. We create that into a unified checkout experience using workflows. Or, our workflows, we can compose all of those things very quickly. And one of the product instantiations of that is a one-click checkout experience. And that's what a lot of our customers use. So StoryChain, which is one of the major layer ones, uses our checkout experience to move funds onto their network. Yuga Labs, which is they created ApeChain, were their fiat on-ramp provider, connecting all the on-ramps to their new network. And that's all powered by this underlying technology.
Really interesting. Okay, so one of the parts I've always been curious about is the security component, the auditing of potentially the creation of some workflows by AI. Are you also using sort of on the other side, so they're being created on the other side, are using AI to also audit them, or do you have people looking through this stuff at this stage?
Yeah, so the approach we took is instead of letting the AI have the flexibility to write code at a level where there would be catastrophic potential for bugs, the workflow protocol exposes a much higher level set of tools that do not even have the capability to make mistakes. So like one of the ways to make AI secure is when you give tools to the AI, have the guardrails already built in. So what we do is we build all these individual components. These are integrations, right? Those are built by humans and are audited the good old-fashioned way.
Okay.
But when you're composing them and setting the parameters and creating automations that stitch together these individual components, you don't need to worry about the AI making mistakes because the engine doesn't expose that. It's much higher level. It's saying, hey, go to exchange this currency for this currency. Go to a bridge, go to another DEX and exchange that currency for another currency. The user gets to set all those constraints, but maybe the AI can play within it. And it's not afforded the flexibility to send it to the wrong address. That capability would not even be exposed to the AI. And I think for now, that is the right approach. Don't even give the AI the opportunity to produce code that could steal your money. Because you can't rely on like an automatic review process that's also looking at the code. The common approach, and this is in Web 2 SaaS as well, is build a lot of infrastructure around it that very much narrows the mistake surface area for an AI system.
Okay. Okay, that makes a lot of sense to me. When we think about like interoperability, and cross-chain, is that something that's already built in and I missed it, or is it something you're primarily focusing on? Sort of sounds like the Ethereum ecosystem, layer twos, things like that, or are you all over the place and looking to broaden it a bit?
Yeah, we're natively multi-chain. That's actually one
Okay.
of the larger value adds of our technology. It's when you're building a workflow, even on one chain, it's complicated, but it gets very laborious when you start building multi-chain workflows because you unfortunately, you have to re-architect a lot of your smart contracts to be compatible with the multi-chain world. And the major consideration is when you go from one blockchain to two blockchains, they're no longer synchronized. And so you have to do a lot of magical cryptography and, commit, wait, send message, receive that complicates things. And so we've built that all into the engine. And so when you create a workflow with our system, whether it's on 1, 2, 10, 50 chains, from your perspective, it's just do action 1, do action 2. If this thing happens, go down path A. If another thing happens, go down path B. That's the experience you get as a developer or an AI. And you don't have to worry about all this complex plumbing underneath.
Okay. Okay, I get it. That's definitely helpful to hear. So maybe one of the last questions that I have is, where do you see all this going? So all the agentic AI in coordination with blockchain, the bigger picture, maybe even you could relate it to the company, but bigger picture, where does this all go? Where do you see like even a few years? I know it's difficult to say, but in a few years, what does this stuff look like? What are people building? How are they building them?
Yeah, I think the most exciting potential reality is this idea of a fully autonomous web or fully autonomous services. One of the challenges of an AI system, right, is, when you host a open source model where you've got to pay for that compute, right? It exists on a hosted cloud or an on-prem data center. It's got to pay for energy and do all these things. And so it would be very exciting if we can connect the on-chain universe to the off-chain methods of sort of allocating resources, right? If I could pay my energy bill with a stable coin, if I could pay my cloud bill with a stable coin, well, what that unlocks is, well, maybe an AI agent that has a key with a stable coin can now pay its own energy bill, can pay its own, cloud bill and host itself and then perpetuate itself and then serve other agents and customers in this sort of emergent, decentralized, autonomous web. And now like the variance on this is so extreme. It's hard to predict what the consequence of that would be. But if we assume that AI is getting more and more sophisticated and it's doing human level economic work, well, then you're going to get the like internet economy, but at 10 million times the speed, always on, never sleeping, accumulating resources and growing exponentially. And so, maybe we see amazing software, really great video games, progress in biomedical research. I think that's the optimistic case for these technologies in general, right? Is they scale, they coordinate, and they can exchange resources as opposed to it all being in a closed ecosystem that, you start to cave under your own weight. You want these things to disperse information broadly into a market structure. And I think that's quite possible with these two technologies combining.
Okay. So you did make me think of one more question. Are you a fan of open source versus the closed source? Are you good on both sides, do you think? And all of as this stuff relates together, I think.
I tend to be pro open source, primarily for the reason that I think a lot of the innovation still, and it's less appreciated nowadays because a lot of this technology has been productized, but it does come from the universities. And the companies are not that far ahead of the universities. And a lot of these foundational innovations did come from universities or, open source contributions that a lot of people contributed to and iterated on. And so I don't think we're there yet. Like LLMs are not the end game. I don't think test time compute is going to take us to super intelligence. Like I think we're seeing diminishing returns now. And I think you can see that through revealed preference and maybe these are maybe I'll look back at this in 5 years once we reach singularity and be like, okay, again, I was very wrong. But my guess is that if you were building super intelligence, like truly building super intelligence, you would not be building other products. You would not be acquiring businesses. Super intelligence would be the most valuable thing ever created. You wouldn't be trying to build a hardware business around it. So I do think that there's a recognition that things are starting to taper off and you need that next scientific innovation. And if we want that, I think you do that through open source. If you want to productize and have a competitive moat, then we don't do that. But I just don't think we're at that level of sophistication yet.
So I respect that, and I say this all the time because to me it's that important. I wasn't going to go down this road with you today, but I was like, because normally I talk about this too much, but I firmly believe that one, AGI is around the corner in the next 2 years, and superintelligence is probably not that far out from there. The reason why I say that not is just because we're going to have AI overlords, but because like Dr. Eric Smith, former CEO of Google, is going around right now. I was at a conference last week, and he is sounding the alarm. He's saying there's no question where it's coming very, very quickly, whether it's going to be in China or the United States, whether it's something that comes out of the blue and we're not as familiar with it, or we didn't realize that it was going to get by whatever company. There's many other people. Jeffrey Hinton talks about this all the time. He's the godfather of AI. And because everything is exponential and we're finally seeing that, people are finally seeing it. I've sadly been talking for the last 15 years when people, whatever, would say you're insane talking about this, but we're seeing it. We're seeing it happening at such a clip. We're still seeing most of this stuff as linear, and we're all like used to a linear mindset. But my belief is that yes, these wallets, just bringing it back full circle, the wallets for AI agents are basically being tested now, are going to be probably in full use within 2 years. Stablecoin, and hopefully that'll pass because it'll help with innovation around the world, especially United States, will further buoy that and push that in that direction. We're going to give agents, initially we're so nervous about it. It's like jumping into an autonomous vehicle. The first time you're like, oh my God, what am I doing? But you've probably been in San Francisco, and they're amazing. I mean, they fly, and I was surprised. I have to be far more cautious, but the ones that I've been in just take off, and they're fantastic. And once you get that trust level with an agent doing X, Y, and Z, and then giving it a wallet to do something, it starts to connect all the dots at this exponential rate. It's going to be amazing. So I'm all for what you guys are building. I think it's going to be an amazing place to be for a long time. or until the AI overlords come get us.
Until singularity, then all bets are off.
That's
But
right.
at that point, it's like, many of the assumptions about how economics works are probably going to have to be rethought.
Totally. Well, Griffin, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much as well.
Tech Snippets Today with Joseph Raczynski.